Out of the various video ideas I've accumulated in my list the past few months, few impassioned me quite like this one. A couple years ago, I finished my first read through of the Wingfeather Saga. It took quite a bit longer than it should have. Technically, it was something like 8 years since I read the first book and came back to the remaining 3 after a while. Regardless, I finished the series, and I read the last 3 books in a matter of weeks. And I can say for certain I have never been more frustrated by a book series ending in my life. So first, a quick summary of how the ending goes. Spoilers ahead, of course. So, after a series of conflicts with the villain of the series and the villain's subsequent downfall, our heroes find themselves with a large army of formerly evil minions that don't really know what to do. The minions are given a choice of what to do next, and many choose to join the heroes as the building blocks of a new kingdom. They are given names, and they take their places as the new royal subjects. But there is something else brewing as well. Kalmar, the cursed king of this new kingdom, has a plan to heal the minions. The minions, like Kalmar himself, have all been transformed into halfway beings. Humanoid wolves, snakes, and so on that aren't quite natural. Kalmar, however, has a powerful stone in his possession, and he takes it and starts a ritual with all the cursed beings surrounding him. The ritual typically involves a person and an animal of some sort, with the animal being drained of its life force in the process of making the person more like it. And Janner, the still human brother of Kalmar, realizes halfway through the ritual what Kalmar's plan is. He realizes simultaneously that it will not work, but that he can make it work. In a selfless act of love, Janner rushes into the midst of the crowd, taking the stone from Kalmar as the ritual ends. The stone, in turn, drains his life force, ending his life but restoring the humanity of the minions in Kalmar. Yet, even after this, there is still hope. Just when it seems the story's ending will be tragic, one hope remains. There is a spring somewhere in the woods, one that brought a friend of the heroes back to life after his fall. It restored him to health, even granting strength he didn't previously have. This spring can very likely bring Janner back. So it is that the band of heroes come together once again, preparing for one more adventure to bring back their friend. They all pack up, mounting dragons in a hopeful bid to save Janner's life, and the story ends. There is nothing beyond this. There's hope. Perhaps Janner can be brought back, and a happy ending is yet to come. But the story does not have an ending. I had resisted reading this series for some time, but against all odds I grew quite invested when I came back to it. I had grown to like the characters, and while the world building wasn't particularly interesting to me, it did have a certain charm to it. How angered I was when I realized the author, Andrew Peterson, had failed to finish his story. I'm going to come off quite strong here, but it's because I feel quite strong about this. And it's also because of the author's foreword in a subsequent collection of tales from the same universe. I'm going to quote him directly here. If you're asking whether or not I'll write about what happened after the epilogue of The Warden and the Wolf King, the answer is a definite no. The canon is closed. I have my reasons, some of which are literary and some of which are theological, and they boil down to this. Whatever hope or longing might have woken in you when you finished the book is better by far than anything I might have written. End quote. My initial response, in my mind at least, was quite simple. The author had just admitted he does not have the skill to finish his own series. I was ready to accuse him of being a coward. Having had several years to cool off, I now withdraw the second part of that statement. But if you're asking about the first part, the answer is a definite no. The cowardice accusation, I realized, is somewhat misguided. I will note that I went to the trouble of looking up an interview on this, and I found a slightly more developed answer to the question of why the conclusion was written as it is. The short of the argument is this. A true conclusion to the story kills the magic. He gives a good example of this. Sherlock Holmes being killed off in the original stories. It closes possibilities. Suddenly there were no more adventures to be had. The story is over, and I think a lot of us can understand this perspective here. I have searched many years for story conclusions that I find satisfying. I'll admit it's a short list. Lord of the Rings, my favorite fantasy series bar none, has an extremely drawn-out conclusion that tarnishes even the Shire. The ending is bittersweet also, as Frodo sails off to the Undying Lands, permanently scarred by his adventures. He is no longer one for this world. Still, even with this, there is still hope. Sam returns to his wife and children at home, and he's ready to write the conclusion to Frodo's book. Then there's Harry Potter, an ending that never quite hits right for me. I've watched the movies many times, and I've read the books 2 or 3 times. I exclude here the Cursed Child. I don't know, and I don't want to know. I don't know why, but the 20 years time skip feels like it leaves out several plot threads, and I have preferred more development on them. But if you ask me whether I could write anything better, I'd probably have to say no. For The Warden and the Wolf King, I'd say maybe. In fact, I nearly started a project to write my own ending to the story. For context, I would like to write a series of my own, and I've gone so far as to publish the first in the series. I'll openly admit the writing quality is nowhere near the standard of the Wingfeather Saga, but I aspire to reach it one day, and as far as the plot goes, I'm confident I can at least arrange better. Maybe one day I'll be able to write better as well. But there's more. There are some series that I do think have satisfying endings, series that manage to bring all significant plot threads to a conclusion while simultaneously leaving open the door to further adventure. In fact, I misspoke slightly. The first entry on my list is Avatar: The Last Airbender, a series that intentionally leaves a major plot thread undone. The final battle of this series happens quickly. The villain's evil plan is executed and undone within a span of 2 episodes, a conclusion to the series that lasted about 3 seasons altogether. By the end of the episode, the villain, former Phoenix King Ozai, is imprisoned and powerless, peace is restored, and our main protagonist has a girlfriend. Just before the closing scene, however, Zuko confronts Ozai in his prison cell. He has only one question: where's my mother? We aren't given an answer to this question, at least in the course of the show. Yet it works as a standalone, for it shows that there's more left to be done in the world. It leaves open that door of adventure, and it does all this while giving an answer to all the pressing questions of the series. There are more besides this. The original Star Wars trilogy ends quite well. There's still a whole galaxy to explore, an Imperial remnant to take down at the end. This made for a good series of spin-offs and legends, such as the Thrawn trilogy and the X-Wing novels. I'll give a particular shout out to the Hand of Thrawn duology, a 2-book series that may be my favorite in all of Star Wars. Its conclusion likewise ends with all plot threads wrapped, yet a glimpse, or a vision, I might say, of the future. The Warden of the Wolf King does not notice. I read to the end of the book, and I was not met with a minor yet significant question that would lead to further adventure. I was likewise not met with a glimpse of the future, for we don't know if the future that we hope for will pan out. I would even settle for a generic happily ever after ending after what we were given. I'll add more here because I want to address Andrew Peterson's allusion to theology. He states outright that he has a theological reason for not ending the story, and I can only speculate what that is. However, whatever that reason is, I'll lay out a counter-argument. In the scriptures, we are actually given a picture of the end of the story. We are given several facts about the end of time. For example, Martha knows even in Jesus' time that all will be resurrected on the last day. God has not left us with an ambiguous answer on whether we will be successfully raised from the dead. We are given a guarantee in Scripture that we will be raised one day. We are given a picture of revelation of what heaven will look like, and God has given us that picture as an assurance that what we suffer here on earth is not in vain. So as I start to wrap this up, I want to lay out 2 alternate endings to what we were given. My first alternative addresses something of a plot hole. If there is a magical healing spring somewhere in the woods that can bring a person back from the dead and restore them physically, even improving them beyond their original state, there is absolutely no reason that spring couldn't be used to heal the hundreds of former minions in a story. I use the word heal specifically, since healing is the word used to describe the restoration of humanity that is given to these minions. In the context of the story, this makes no sense. But there's naturally a theological significance to Janner sacrificing his life and being subsequently raised, so I'll go down an alternate path where we continue down the road of the story where it leaves off. It doesn't have to be drawn out. Perhaps the group gathers around the shriveled form of Janner, having found the spring after weeks, slowly pouring some of the spring water into his mouth. For a few moments it seems like nothing is happening, but his skin gradually fills with color and his shriveled form doesn't seem quite so lifeless. The group waits with bated breath until finally his eyes flicker open. I would have taken this as an ending. I don't see any justification for ending the story as it was, for the adventure wasn't even over. The rebuilding of the kingdom had begun. There was work to be done. It was time to start anew, the beginning of a grand age of peace and prosperity. I've gone on long enough with this, so I'll wrap up here. Funnily enough, even as I wrote this script, I wasn't quite satisfied with the ending I'd written. As I said before, I still have some ways to go. Regardless, I'll say it plainly, the ending of the story was wrong, both literally and theologically. We do have hope, and we do continue in longing on this earth until the day we're called home. And praise be to God, we know that we will have a happy ending after all of this.